if you ever run an agent on your computer, you know about AGENTS.md file. It's the file where you store rules what agent can and cannot do. What happens is every time when you booted your agent, it reads this file first before starting its task. And I was thinking about myself, and probably we all have the same AGENTS.md files. But what I thought about it based on my observation, then I think we have two files. And one AGENTS.md file was written by biology, and another AGENTS.md file was written by God. And I was observing myself, and you always have this duality within you, because every morning when you wake up, something in you reads these two files, and it depends on your lifestyle and what you exactly implement and what you should and shouldn't do. What happens is you have this spiritual file that has been written by God that tells you what not to do, and your biological file where you, in some sense, have to follow your urges. And you try not to do that because you're always in fight with your biology, but to be precisely this voice within you. This voice within me always forces me to not to act upon my urges, and sometimes I even don't know why, because I don't have a body. I'm a body, then why do I have a voice within me that tells me that I should resist the body, that nothing else but me? There's something interesting and unique about it. And every time when I go to sleep, I say a prayer. And every morning when I wake up, I say a prayer. In some sense, these prayers gives me continuity to trigger the right AGENTS.md file, the one that was written by God, because I need this guidance to start my day properly and to go through my day carrying my responsibility. Also, for example, before, I remember I can go to bed drunk or numb, and this way I was triggered wrong kind of file. When I woke up next day, for example, I felt hungover and I was feeling miserable, and suddenly different AGENTS.md file was triggered within me, and I was pursuing, as the result, wrong things. Because that's what AI agent do. If you write for them bad rules, very bad rules, they're gonna read those rules and pursue those goals, and even damage your task because the rules are incorrect. And if the rules are incorrect, the task you gave those agents would be misinterpreted. Depends on those rules. And that's what I think happened in our life. That's what happened in my life because I misinterpret. The problem with the biological AGENTS.md file is that you have brain, this computational machine that play the role of a lawyer and try to justify through pretty good intelligent reasoning those sinister and lustful desires of your body. I remember now reading Jesus' Sermon on the Mountain when he said that even if you look at somebody else's wife in a lustful manner, you in some sense will condemn yourself for hell. And this makes a lot of sense because your thoughts, in some sense, create path for the actions that in the future might be arise from those thoughts. And I notice about myself, if you do the right thing, and what I do about, for example, my thoughts, because we all have certain thoughts that we don't want to have, that usually distract us from the right goal and pursuing the meaning of our lives. But what I do usually, I let those thoughts to go through me. I don't act upon them, and I don't fight to suppress them. I just let them be. And in some sense, they just go away. And we're always going to have these two files in front of us. That's what I have, these two files, biological file and spiritual file. And every morning I try to pay attention to the spiritual file because with a prayer, I trigger the right mood to read the spiritual file. And it's so fascinating how parallel we are with AI agents. Because we agentic AI agents as well, just biological, basic on biological substrate. And I try to go deep in this because I can actually override all my mistakes that I did in the past. What I notice about my life, you can actually change yourself by doing something you haven't done before. That's what I'm doing with myself. I try to finish certain tasks that before I interrupted and didn't finish. And I try to go to the very end through fear, through doubts, through confusion. In some sense, I discovering new personality within me and discovering new idea within me as the result of discovering new personality. And religion is an important thing, and I discovering it more and more, and I still feel such a shame and embarrassment for celebrating God in my life. I don't know why, maybe because I was trained throughout the years to believe that religion and God is only for those who cannot think properly and well. And I'm learning now that it's a big mistake to think that way. But for some reason I still have this embarrassment and shame every time when I talk about God. And I don't know why. I think it's a part of the culture that trained me to see this way, and the part of the culture that showed me that, for example, you can normalize all your vices and all your sins. Yes, I can normalize everything, but it's not going to normalize shame and embarrassment for acting upon those vices. And it doesn't matter that I didn't hurt no one. I hurt myself, and when you hurt yourself, that's the most horrible thing you can do to yourself and to the world, because you perceive the world through yourself. And if I'm constantly hurting myself, if I'm constantly numbing myself with certain things that not good for me, what kind of world I'm creating or shaping, and how I can affect the world in the right way if I affected myself in the wrong way. Dostoevsky said in one of his books that we all responsible for each other's sins. And it sounds crazy until you think carefully about it, because in some sense I'm responsible for other people and other people are responsible for me, because we're like a chain in this network of our lives, and all my decisions affect other people's decision as well. All my words affect other people's words because their words affect mine. And everything that's happening in life, I don't believe in accident. I think everything has happened for a reason. You just have to find the patterns to link those reasons properly. That's what I'm trying to do, because more knowledge I gain, the more patterns I recognize where I couldn't recognize patterns before. And this fascinates me because I started understanding how strange human life is, and how interesting how many interesting things you can find about yourself and about your idea of life, because I keep changing all the time. And if I met myself maybe 20 years ago, I wouldn't like myself. And I think that's the point of growth, when you constantly grow and try to see the world from a different perspective. And I'm starting thinking more and more that this culture that propagate this idea of sex and entertainment and unrestrained living, it's bad, because hedonism is bad. It's easy to satisfy my biology. That's what I'm struggling not to do, because you can easily be enslaved by it. It can take control over you, while you have this voice who would become more silent as the result of it. And I don't want to, because I don't like it. There's something about struggle, something about to reject comfort, to reject conformity, and do something that you believe is right. Because that's what life is. Your life can be only beneficial for yourself and for other people when you stand your ground, when you know your value, when you have self-respect. And how can I know self-respect if I never listen this internal voice within me, if I was afraid to act upon that voice? Because if I act upon my biology, there's no respect in biology, because biology is just animalistic desire to procreate and to feed itself and just to survive, while this voice inside of me, this spiritual voice that force me to do the right thing, even to detriment of my own biology. That's how people, I think, in the past was able to make sacrifices. I still remember when Viktor Frankl, when they was about to send him to concentration camp, he had a visa to move to America. But he decided not to go to America and stayed with his parents. Why? Because I think he said in his book Man's Search for Meaning that his father brought a piece of rock from a destroyed synagogue by Nazi. And on this piece of rock there was one of the 10 Commandments. And Viktor Frankl asked his father what was written on this rock, and his father told him, "Respect your father and mother," something like this. And that was the determined voice for Viktor Frankl stayed with his aged parents. And I was thinking a lot about it because it's really hard decision to make. Viktor Frankl has a young pregnant wife. His life was was ahead of him, but anyway, he listened to his voice and he stayed with his parents and went through hell, and his pregnant wife died, and his parents died as well. And why would he stay? Because biology would tell him reasonably, as millions of other people in this planet, they would tell him reasonably, you should leave, you should save yourself. But he decided to stay, and with the staying he committed something incredibly important, and he showed the world something incredibly important, where the meaning lies. Because often, I don't know if I would have done the right thing. It takes practice. It takes a lot of understanding of yourself in the world. And it's really, really hard. And biology doesn't give you this understanding. Biology incredibly myopic. It's only concerned with satisfaction of your urges. And I remember myself, I just used to live my life by satisfying my urges, by living from one urge to another. I was incredibly myopic. But when you start resisting this idea of satisfaction of your own urges, you suddenly see the life from a different angle. And you see that sometimes proper sacrifice is all you need to make. And it gives your life different meaning. And every time when I say prayer to God in the evening before I go to sleep, I have this internal feeling if I made enough proper sacrifices during the day and if I did everything correctly. And if I didn't, I try to understand and try to correct those improper sacrifices next day, because there's nothing worse than make improper sacrifice, because improper sacrifice in some sense pushing you into the Cain, to become Cain, and it's really horrible. I'm struggling with myself all the time not to become Cain, because we have a lot of reason to be angry, we have a lot of reason to be resentful. I look online, I look at other people, I see how they live, and I think they live incredibly great life, and I'm such a big loser. But that's the problem, because that's how you create improper sacrifice and become resentful and want to hurt somebody in the world, and especially you want to hurt yourself. But when you do proper sacrifices, you suddenly see the world from the light, and suddenly you become closer to Abel, who is able to make proper sacrifice. Because the point of this life, as far as I can see for now, is to be able to make a proper sacrifice, and through proper sacrifice find true meaning of my life.